Okay, I think we'll get started if that's all right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon. Before we start, I'd like to introduce you to the team that are on the phone and will be handling the webinar today, and also who will be hosting it. On the line today we have Helene Palmer, who is Marketing Manager at Brill. We have Ove Kala, who is the Head of Marketing for Brill. And your presenter today will be Youed Ilik, who is the Publishing Director of Brill's Middle East, Islamic and African Program. My name is Sarah Killingworth. I come from a company called Maverick Publishing Specialists, and I will be chairing the meeting today. In a few moments, Youed will begin the presentation, which will take you through Brill's online Islam package, looking at the content that it provides, how to search the resource, and then give a product demonstration. We've set aside time at the end of the presentation to take questions, but if you think of something that you'd like to ask while we're carrying out the presentation, please do use the chat facility, and I will capture the questions and put them to you at the end of the presentation. Thank you ever so much again for attending this afternoon, and I will hand over now to Youed for the presentation. Thank you, Ed. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome from the Leiden office of Brill. My name is Youed Ilik, and I'm Publishing Director for Middle East and Islamic Studies, as Sarah already told you. We have a small audience here, so if you hear some coughing and laughing, don't get upset, because this is our first tryout of the webinar as well. And I hope to introduce you to some tips and tricks and interesting features of the online program of Brill. This is what we're going to do this afternoon, or this morning when you're in the US. A little history of Arabic studies at our company, some general features of the online program, how to access everything, registration, for instance, personal tools, what is available online. We'll deal with some common problems, and then we start with live searching of tips, examples, and tricks. And the end of the session, which will last approximately 1 hour in total, there is room for questions and answers. You can ask your questions during the webinar by chat, and we already received a couple of questions for answering at the end. Brill was founded in 1683 in Leiden, so we're celebrating 330 years of publishing already. We're one of the oldest publishing houses in the world. But we are a public company since 1987 at the Amsterdam Stock Exchange, with offices in Leiden and Boston, approximately 125 employees, with a strong focus on humanities, social sciences, biology, and law. Most of our publications are in English, the rest in French, German, Arabic, and Chinese. When we look at the history of Arabic studies in Leiden, it starts in 1613, exactly 400 years ago, with the first chair of Arabic literature and language by Thomas Arpinius. He was the first professor of Arabic in Leiden. And Brill started in 1683, as already said. The first book in Arabic was published in 1733, and from then on we have published a lot of Arabic texts and translations. One of the famous ones is the Goeie edition of At-Tabari, 1879, which will become available online next year, fully searchable in English and fully searchable in Arabic. In 1890, the first meeting of the Encyclopedia of Islam was held in Leiden, and the Encyclopedia of Islam first edition started soon after that. After the Second World War, we started with the second edition of the Encyclopedia of Islam, the most commonly used version of it, which was completed in 2005. In 2000, the first journals came online, and then you see a lot of developments in the electronic world. The Index Islamicus came to Brill. We started online reference works. In 2007, we started the Encyclopedia of Islam, 3rd edition, which is still underway. And last year we received the Sheikh Zayed Prize Award for Best Publishing House in Arabic Studies. The money we received for that is being used for scholarships, translations, and special projects we're carrying out in the coming years. And this year, of course, celebrating 400 years of Arabic in Leiden. First of all, some general features of the online products we carry. The demo I'm going to give you in about 15 minutes, you'll see that we have the Brill logo everywhere. But most institutions will add their own logo, so it will be a more personalized version of the online products. Most people will have access via an IP address, that's the institutional subscriptions, but it's also possible to log in with a username and a password. Institutions are able to download statistics, mark files, and other relevant information, and they can connect all the material to their own catalog via open URL. I come back to that. You can search through all the Brill sites, Brill titles, and a lot of information is free. Not only the metadata, the abstracts, and the DOIs, the digital object identifiers, but also the first 3 or 4 lines of every article in encyclopedias and the first 3 or 4 bibliographic results. Only when you want to dig deeper or go further into the material, you'll have to have an app subscription, or you can access through a one-day or a weekly subscription. I'll come back to that later as well. You can forward information via social icons and set up alerts for yourself. The personal tools I'll deal with, and there's even an automated permission service, which means that you can include material in your course material, and just with a few clicks on buttons you can get permission to use that material. There's 2 institutional models for our online material: a subscription with an annual fee, or an outright purchase with a one-off fee, and then the one who pays the fee is going to be the owner of the material. So there is, in the first case, it's only a kind of lease where you have an annual installment fee, and the outright purchase you become the owner of the material. There is also a new option that you have access to everything on one platform for 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month. Everything on Brill Online is searchable, even via Google, but not everything is accessible. For every product you'll see a small box, and when it's green you have full access, when it's white you have no access, so you have to pay individually. Apart from the access that is provided through institutions, you can register your own personal account. For instance, if you want to save records or set up alerts for certain new materials, and I'll show you that in the online demo as well. Here's some features of that personal registration. You can save favorite articles. You can save your search history, so you can go back what you've done before. You can label your search, and you can set up an email alert or an RSS alert when a certain topic has new material on the online platforms. This gives you an overview of what is available on Brill Islam Online. Brill Online is a much wider platform, but this is the material we offer in the field of Islamic and Middle Eastern studies. And you can see we have 4 different platforms. They are physically separated: books and journals, reference works, bibliographies, and primary sources. If you go to the reference works, you can see that we have a lot of encyclopedias, not only the already mentioned Encyclopedia of Islam, but we have Encyclopedia Islamica, the Encyclopedia of Women in Islamic Cultures, Encyclopedia of the Quran, Encyclopedia of Arabic Language and Linguistics, and a lot more. There are bibliographies, Index Islamicus, the most famous one, but also linguistic bibliography and Index to the Study of Religions, which can be of use for people in this field. And we have primary sources on a separate platform where you'll find huge numbers, millions of pages of documents, archives, scanned material from various sources. This is an example of US intelligence on the Middle East, which was just launched, and I'll go to show you some of that as well. Some of the products are a little bit more difficult to grasp because they are comprised of more than one product. For instance, the Encyclopedia of Islam has a first edition, a second edition, and the third edition, which is ongoing, and the French edition, and there's also a separate atlas and indexes. These are all separate products, so they have to be accessed. They can be searched through at the same time, but they can be accessed separately as well, as you can see in the next slide. So if you have a certain search on Baghdad, you can still filter that search for the specific encyclopedia you're looking at. Why do we do this? We often get the question, why do you keep those old encyclopedias? Why don't you just overwrite the articles with new articles? Because we think for scholarly purposes it's good to keep the scholarly information that was given in another era. If you look at the entry on 1001 Night of Layla wa Layla, then you see that the way that this subject is described is very different from the first edition in 1913 to the third edition in 2007. You can have a look yourself later. Important is also the help button. Most people don't like reading help files, but in this case it can be very useful, especially if you're looking at transliteration, font problems, and problems with searching. So have a look and click on the help. Then you'll see that there is a very big transliteration table. The different products have different transliteration. EI2 was using a rather awkward form of transliteration, which we abandoned in EI3 and our other encyclopedias. Through the search program, it doesn't really matter whether you fill in those transliteration letters. You can do without and still find material. I'll show you later. Brockelman has a very awkward transliteration system as well. It's all mentioned in this table. If you don't have the right fonts or you have problems with your browser, you might end up with strange boxes in your search results. This is Zakat or Elms, and you can see how it should look, and sometimes looks in a different browser or if you don't have the right font. I'll explain in the live demo how to change your font so you don't have those strange boxes anymore. You also see a little denominator here, or a little sign, which if you hover over it with your mouse will show you where this article is published in the print edition of the encyclopedia. This works for a couple of encyclopedias, but not all of our encyclopedias. I will show this in the live demo as well. The mystery of the tilde. Searching in Brill online is different from searching on Google. And one of the reasons is that we have a few options that are not so common in Google, and if you don't know this, it can be very frustrating because you can't find what you're looking for. For instance, if you look for Baghdad in the normal way, you'll find over 6,000 results in Brill online. It doesn't matter whether you use diacritics or not. You'll find approximately the same number. The difference is caused by the fact that some words are sometimes images or in a different font, so there might be a few different results, but more in general it will be the same number. Then you can use the asterisk and the question mark if you want to fill in multiple or single wildcards, and you get a complete different number of results. But the tilde, the mystery of the tilde, is something that's very useful if you don't know how to spell a name or a place or some concept. Is it with a C or a K, or is it with an H? Or especially with names, it's very useful. And then you get proximity or fuzzy search. So if you type in Baghdad with a tilde, you'll get over 7,000 results. Maybe that's not very useful in this case, but let's look at this one, Zakat al-Fitr, without diacritics. You get 56 results. With the diacritics, also 56 results. But with the tilde at the end, you get 62 results. Because maybe in some encyclopedias, or if someone made a typo or has a different way of writing things, then you get those results as well. When you search across all our products, you're still able to filter. You can filter by language, by keyword, or by type. And you can also modify your search with the advanced search. The advanced search is specifically used for text and commentaries, and if we have time, I'll show you an example. Now let's go for the live demo, and we go to brillonline.com. If you go to the homepage of brillonline.com, you'll see the 4 buttons for the 4 different platforms. At this moment, it's not possible to search throughout all these platforms, but we hope to have that functionality available pretty soon. So now you have to search within one platform. If I go to Reference Works, for instance, you see a listing of all the Brill reference works that are online. And you see all these green boxes. That means that I have access to everything. But normally that wouldn't be the case. So I'll sign out of my own subscription, and I go in as a personal user. And you'll see that most of the boxes have gone white, so I don't have access. And I'm only allowed to go into the Encyclopedia of Islam. But I want to search only the Encyclopedia of Islam as accessible material. However, if I go into the search mode, I get over 6,000 results from all our encyclopedias. So I can browse through here, and of course when I have access to something there will be a green box, and if I don't have access then there will be a white box. But if I click on it, I can still read the first few lines of that article. It depends a little bit on the encyclopedia, 3, 4, 5 lines. So you still get an idea of what the article is about. And when you're really interested, you can purchase access to that specific thing or item. And we have 3 options. You can either have access to all of our reference works, all of our bibliographies, or to a single primary source. And here you can see that you can just buy access for 1 day. This is in US dollars, and in euros it's $6.95, $9.95 in euros for 7 days, and €29.95 euros for 30 days. This is very useful for individual scholars who don't have access to their institute or are in on travel or other remote places. It gives you access to all our reference works, so you can search everything for the period you request. If you go to Google and search for material, it's more difficult to find the material from Brill online. For instance, if you go to Zagat, you probably get all kinds of results which are not very relevant for your research. It also depends a little bit on your library. Some institutes have installed the Brill online platform to connect it to the Google search, and then it's easier to get access to the Brill online as well. So this is a little bit of trial and error. It doesn't really work very well with Google. The only trick that I've found so far is using a term and enter the word encyclopedia with AE, the old-fashioned way of writing it, and then on the first page it should show up with the Brill online, which doesn't in this case. So even then it doesn't really work. So let's forget about Google and go back to where we were in searching Brill online. If you go to Explore and encounter problems with the font, you can go to Internet Options and then look for accessibility, and then you ignore the font styles which are specified on web pages, because Brill online sends a specific type of font with the website, and sometimes it doesn't work properly. If you do, click on OK and look at the main screen now, you'll see that the letters are changing. And then you can, with the font, select your own font. So now it's Times New Roman for the web page font, but you can also select another Unicode font like Gentian, which is often used depending on the kind of research you're doing. You see the font is changing every time. So if you encounter problems with these little boxes, try this option. Now let's go to some of the encyclopedias. I first want to show you the Encyclopedia of Arabic Language and Culture. I go back to the full availability, so I have access to everything again. Encyclopedia of Arabic Language and Linguistics. There is an example of these fonts in this encyclopedia. You can see here, for instance, that some of the letters are a little bit smaller than others, and that's because the font is changed from the browser you're using. So don't get upset, or don't panic when this happens, because if you change the font, it will come out correctly. In this encyclopedia, you also have a number of options which are quite useful. For instance, I'm going to show you the loan words. And if you go to loan words in Afrikaans, you have to go to the article on South Africa. And you see these images. You can click on them, enlarge them, and with your right mouse copy them to your own computer or print them or whatever you want to do with it. So it's an extra functionality which can be very useful. This can also be done in, for instance, the Encyclopedia of Jews in the Islamic world, where there's a lot of images available. especially the article on amulet. Contains some beautiful images. You click on them, they come out very sharp and high resolution. And again, you can copy or save this image on your own PC and use it in whatever you like. Please beware of copyright, of course, so you're not supposed to publish it. The Encyclopedia of Jews in the Islamic World has another interesting feature. That's the very extensive index. If you look for anti-Semitism, you get 266 results. The first one being the main article on this topic in the encyclopedia. The second one being the index term in the extensive index. And if you look at this, you can see that the word anti-Semitism or anti-Judaism or anything that's related to it can be found in all these articles. They're all in blue, so you can click on all of them. By country, by subject, and so on and so on. So the whole index has been included in this encyclopedia as well. I'm going back to the Encyclopedia of Islam and show you what happens if you type in amulet here. 111 results, and on the left, as I said before, you can see 57 articles in the Encyclopedia of Islam second edition, 32 in the first edition, 11 in the third edition. There's 7 items in the index, and there's 4 articles in the French edition. In the Encyclopedia of Islam 2, we had Arabic headwords and not English headwords. But you are still able to find the right entry. If you look for Misr, Egypt, you go straight to the right article. But if you don't know that you have to type in Misr, you just type in Egypt and you refer to exactly the same article. So these names or these concepts have been linked. We have done it with a few proper names as well, but not with the thousands and thousands of proper names that have different ways of describing them. So that there you need a lot more search, and there are some projects going on for name authority files which are not completed yet. We're working on that. Encyclopedia of Islam 3 is in progress, so it's not finished yet. If you go there, you will not find the complete alphabet, although we are updating articles throughout the alphabet. It will take at least another 7 to 10 years to finish EI3. And if you go to the Encyclopedia of, the Encyclopedia Islamica, you'll notice that we're still in the beginning because only the letters A and B are available, as you can see in the list here. The fact that the P and the T are mentioned is an omission. The P is for the preliminaries and the T is an article that was misplaced. So we have to correct that. We hope to add more material, but this project will take another 10 to 15 years as well. I'm going to the Encyclopedia of the Quran because that also has some interesting features. First of all, there is a dictionary of Quranic usage where you can search all the terms that are relevant in the Quran and see their description. For instance, if I go to the word kitab, kataba, you'll see that this is explained in detail and what the usage in the Quran is. It is fully searchable in Arabic as well. So if I, for instance, copy this word here and put it in the search box, you get all the results, the 19 results from the dictionary where the word kitab, kataba, or whatever form of it is found. We'll introduce more searches in Arabic in our products next year when we start with the text and commentaries of the various products like At-Tabari and others. The Encyclopedia of the Quran also contains a link to primary sources. It's a little bit hidden, unfortunately. It's in the contents page of the encyclopedia at the very bottom. You'll see a link to Supplement 1, Early Western Qurans. And it contains the full digitized or scanned Qurans from the 16th century, 17th century, which were published in languages other than Arabic. And if you go to this one, you go to a special site. It's included in the subscription. You can go to the scanned images of those Qurans. It takes a bit longer to download because it's huge files. So you get the outside cover and all the images of that Quran page by page. I mentioned the primary sources, and we also included the US intelligence on the Middle East, which is scanned documents which were released only recently on the Middle East from secret services and other institutions. A very interesting collection. And this is also has some new functionality regarding citations, downloading, copying, and printing. For instance, if you click on citation, you can export the citation of this specific document in that collection to RefWorks or EndNote. I'm going now to the bibliographies. Index Islamicus is a huge collection of over 500,000 records concerning Islamic and Middle Eastern studies. And it's updated at the moment 4 times a year. We are planning to update it more regularly. About 16,000 records are added every year. And here I can search, for instance, on the same zakat, get 132 results, all of them listed. I can export them if I want, if I have my personal account. And if I don't know how to write the word and I use zakat with a tilde, I get too many results, probably 494. So everything that looks like zakat or is spelled in a different way, which happens in other languages, and so you get a lot more results. An interesting thing in the Index Islamicus is the open URL icon. If you click on an article, you can see here that there is a little booklet, and if you click on it, it will search in the holdings of your library, if you have an institutional subscription, if the item is available. Here at Brill we have a different system. We don't have a library system, but we still are able to see where an item is available. And for instance, if I click on EBSCOhost, and if I would have a subscription, I would go directly to the item or the article mentioned in that search result. I can't go all the way, but I can promise you that if the connection is made right by your librarian, then if you click here on this icon or this link here, then you can go straight to the article that you have selected. A very useful feature of a bibliography, of course. Now I'm almost at the end of the demo, And I leave the most difficult question for the last, because sometimes you're looking for someone or for something or a concept. You don't know exactly how to write it, and you don't know this is a Berber dynasty, and there is not much written in the Index Islamicus, or not much quoted in the Index Islamicus for it. But let's go back to all titles. Oh, I'm sorry, now I'm going to the same trap I was warning you before, because it's 4 different platforms. I'm in the bibliographies platform right now. I should go to the reference platform first. So let me do that, and then type in the word again. Total of 1,085 results, and you'll see from the various encyclopedias where this dynasty is being described. You get different articles from different perspectives, different material. If you go to Google, you'll find 1 article in Wikipedia and 1 in the Encyclopedia Britannica. So especially if you're looking for specialized material, Brill Online gives you a lot more information from a lot more sources. The difficult project for the last one, Brockelman Online, which also includes some interesting features. The Brockelman Online is German, it's very much print oriented and very difficult to access, because you have to know a lot of abbreviations. He was working with abbreviations. We were working on an English translation and changing the abbreviations, but that isn't the case until later this year. For the moment, you have to bear with some intricacies, which I'll show you here. For instance, if you go into this one, you'll see this denominator, or this identifier here. If you hover over it with your mouse, it says section break, volume 6, page 3. This is also used in the Encyclopedia of Islam, 2nd edition. It refers to where this article is in the print edition. Very useful, because of course the print edition doesn't go article by article. These denominators are in different places throughout the text, but you can always have a look where the print version stops and where the print version starts. Now, Brockelman has the problem that he has a very awkward way of writing names. It's very difficult sometimes to find. For instance, this person, Al-Variasi, is mentioned in a chapter on Spain, and the only thing he's mentioning here is Shams ad-Din al-Variasi, who died in 746 or 1345 in Granada. Now you want to know more about this person, so you think, oh, let's try and search all titles. We had 11 results in the Brockelman. Now you have still 11 results, because Brockelman is the only person who wrote his name like this. Now in the tilde comes in. More results. Probably too many, because it will also look for Wahiyasu and Wadari and something like that, names like that. But fortunately, the second result is Al-Wadiyashi. There you find an article, by about a person who could be the same thing, or not to be confused with the slightly younger contemporary, the blindfolded intermarrying. So this will trace you to probably a solution for that strange name that we found. This is more or less the live demo I want to do. So let's go to questions. I don't know whether we have any questions in the chat box.
Thank you everyone for attending this afternoon. I hope you found it really useful. We really do appreciate you giving your time this afternoon. And what we'll do now is we've recorded the session, so we should be making that available for you online. And as I said, we will capture up all of the responses to the questions that have been asked this afternoon and send those round to you so that you have more fuller answers. I do apologise that the audio has not been working as well as it could be. But thank you again ever so much for your time. Thank you.